Hello there guys and welcome back to the channel. So in today's video we are gonna be talking about Spot. Now I am by far not the best Spot player, however this has been one of the more requested guides. And in this video, instead of me reading out all of his abilities and explaining every single line, what I will do is I'm gonna focus on the most important things, cover the pros and cons, and then we're obviously gonna see several fight examples and some of the best matchups and so on and so forth. I will quickly mention how to deal with Spot on defense, but yeah, that's gonna be basically what we're gonna be doing in today's video. So, speaking of that, not the right clip on. Here we go. Speaking of Spot, positives. One of the biggest things, the biggest positives from Spot is that he's a science nuke, and that is effectively kind of like an empty niche, or at the very least has been an empty niche up until extremely recently in the game, because science champions do a lot of things. Science is my favorite class, but being like a nuke high damage dealers, they are not. There are virtually bigger damage output champions in every single class. Quite common, maybe aside from Mystics. But now we do have a science champion that can go in a quest and finish fights extremely quickly. That isn't like Human Torch. Obviously, we have also since gotten Hulk, who is effectively another science nuke, but Spot is definitely one of the very few science champions that can finish fights exceedingly fast. Another upside of Spot is obviously that he is quite formidable as a defender, and if you do not have an appropriate counter to Spot, then fighting against him is quite tricky. And we're going to discuss his defensive abilities slightly later on. Straightforward rotation. In vast majority of the fights, effectively, you just want to set yourself up, get to a level 2, drop the level 2, and the fight is either going to be over, or at the very least, you're going to do a very huge chunk of damage. Spot is not the type of champion like many others we see where you need to dodge 7 attacks and then heavy attack and then drop level 1 and then get to level 3 and then finally you get to use level 2 and there's some sort of damage output. Spot's straightforward. In most fights, you just get to level 2 and nuke them down. Another cool thing about Spot is that his pre-fight simply adds regen potential to all science champions. Every time you knock the opponent down, you get a debuff on yourself, you get some willpower healing, just another cool little extra sustainability for the champion. Now negatives, and there are downsides. Number one thing definitely is going to be relatively limited utility. In itself, Spot really doesn't do anything. He doesn't stop opponents from evading, he doesn't bypass miss, he doesn't stop unstoppable, he doesn't have any petrifies or any other useful debuffs. Only debuffs that he inflicts effectively are ruptures on opponent, debuff immunity on himself, and like physical vulnerability on his level 2, but that's just effectively a bit more damage and it hardly counts as a bit of utility. And again, no immunities and nothing else really that, lets him shine. No staggers, no nullifies, no, none of that. He is fairly bare bones nuke type of champion. You could argue that Red Hulk has more utility than Spot does. Now, another downside is that he has a fairly peculiar playstyle that does take getting used to, and where you need to adjust at the situation at hand, because the fights are extremely AI dependent. Bad uncooperative AI can completely ruin the fight. An AI just spams heavy attacks at times, so on and so forth, can be devastating, and your fights will quite often depend on how well AI cooperates with you. You can play around it, but that immediately introduces another added level of difficulty for you, and quite often will possibly extend the fight duration. Now, another downside for Spot is that block damage is almost inevitable. Well, it's basically inevitable. You can play Spot without taking tons of damage on block, but it's always significantly slower. And especially given the fact that your portal block doesn't give you any block proficiency bonus until you have one Spot active, means that against some champions in some game modes, that will be very, very painful. Lastly, he is also highly sig dependent, so if you do have a Spot, he is a shadow of himself until you get him awakened. Neutral things is entirely based on physical damage. It's kind of good to know. It's kind of like antithesis of Human Torch. That's entirely based on energy damage, which is another reason why I like Spot. He's kind of like the other side of that coin. And obviously he has access to a huge amount of debuff spam, which quite often synergizes well with the nodes, many of the Act 8.2 nodes, for example, and also synergizes extremely well with Despair Mastery or Inequity Mastery, so on and so forth. Right, so that's the talking part done here. Let's get into the gameplay. So I'm going to be using my rank 4 SIG 200 Spot, no Liquid Courage, no Double Edge, no synergies. And first things first, I will be utilizing his signature ability in vast majority of these fights. And that is one thing that most of the people missed initially, and that kind of has become one of the secret weapons of the Spot, if you will. After Portal Block ends, each hit on On's next successful light, heavy, or special attack deals an instant rupture, dealing 2000 physical damage for each spot gained during that portal block. So, if you enter a portal block and if you can get 4 spots and then you can start laying in your opponent, then each hit of your next light, heavy, or special will deal, let's say, extra 8000 damage. And that's a lot. Considering that all of his special attacks are multi-hit, you can benefit from it greatly. Important thing here as well is the fact that it doesn't include medium hits. So after your portal block, you can do double medium or just, go for medium, 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 medium until you get to the special desired. And that will not take away from this ability. And then when you drop a special attack, every single hit of that special attack is going to gain a massive burst of damage. It's super important to keep in mind that this does not work on mediums. Therefore, you can freely throw medium hits and you will still, quote unquote, save this burst of damage for your special attack or heavy attack. Also, while untouchable, after your untouchable basically has been triggered, punishing opponent's heavy attack or special attack will grant you a significant fury that will improve your damage output greatly. So if you can combine both of these abilities, your damage output will go through the roof. The rest of the Spot's abilities, level 1 gives you debuff immunity, level 2 deals a bunch of damage. I'm not entirely sure even what level 3 does, and you don't typically want to do it in most of the fights anyways. And you get extra bonuses as an extra increased duration of your debuff immunity or physical vulnerability if you get to 10 spots, which you normally don't want to do because typically 5 spots is all you need and all you kind of aim for. So let's start with some of these fights here very quickly without further ado. First is going to be a standard Winter Soldier, just to show kind of a basic spot rotation. I personally like to start the fight with like a heavy attack to dash the opponent, to throw the opponent away, and that lets me kind of set up my initial blocking better for me personally. And here is the first bit where, again, I'm just going to go in with mediums and I'm going to showcase that burst on the special attack. We can see that every hit on the special attack here deals 12,000 damage, and that special one dealt like 20% of Winter Soldier's health. So that is how you can benefit from it, even if you're not at a level 1. If you happen to kind of like accumulate a lot of hits on your portal block, then your level 1 can do a ton of damage, which is going to be something that I will showcase in one video specifically later. But in general, for most cases, you do not throw your level 1, or you don't have to in most fights anyways. Your level 1 does help you ramp up because your level 2 will do more damage for each rupture that you have inflicted on your opponent. And if you do want to effectively achieve kind of like a full ramp up, you do want to inflict up to 50 ruptures. And here we're going to see a massive level 2 where each hit inflicts like 50k, 55k damage. So this special attack dealt more than 200 or 250k. And here, obviously, whilst I'm still untouchable, I can be super aggressive because unless opponent has missed bypass mechanics, there's nothing he can do to me. And here again, I'm just going to finish the fight off with a level 1 where I have like 12k damage per burst. So those are the more important mechanics. Right, and now I'm going to show a couple of fight rotations against Battlegrounds length fight. Kind of like this is in the shorter end of the Battlegrounds matchup, but still there are plenty of champions with about sizable health pool in Battlegrounds. Maybe not as much anymore now that everybody has rank 4s and rank 5s pretty much in the deck. But, this is relatively on the smaller end of a health pool in Battlegrounds. So here we can see that I'm basically just, I triggered my untouchable by blocking 5 times. Then I let opponent hit me on purpose in order to activate my untouchable. Then I just build up to level 2. I'm going to build up my spots yet again. He throws heavy attack, sweet. I go for double medium, and we can see that my level 2 is well overkill. So even if he had like another 50k health, he'd be dead. And this entire fight lasted... Where is the duration of the fight? This entire fight lasted 37 seconds. And again, since it was overkill, that is the time period where you can kill kind of like an average health pool opponent. 37 seconds, not bad at all. Here again, this is going to be to show that you don't necessarily even need to throw your level 2s if for whatever reason you can't do that because of some node or because you have a specific opponent that maybe requires you to, throw your level 1s. But here we can see that I'm just going to use level 1s with that signature ability where every single hit that I throw has saved that burst damage from the spots that I have. I got to my level 1s. I also got the debuff immunity on me, which is the only bit of utility that spot really has. And it also gave me a willpower healing, letting me finish this entire sequence with 100% health. And now I'm going to do effectively the same thing. I'm just going to get the hits on my portal block. I'm going to go for double medium, and here we can see that level 1 is going to be enough. So I finished this fight with 2 level 1s. It is slightly slower, there is no doubt about it. Level 2 is the main damage dealing option, but you can still do very well by using level 1s, and the upside of that is that you can actually heal yourself up to full thanks to the debuff that you place on yourself there. Now, moving on the power of level 1 in certain matchups where you have opponents with many hits on their combo meters, or perhaps opponents with special attacks that have many hits. We're going to see here that Spot is just going to absolutely nuke that. So this is a 4-star rank 3 Spot against a 6-star rank 4 Silver Surfer, Quicksilver. And that was it. That was 21 seconds. So this was a 4-star rank 3. And you can see all that burst damage that we did from that level 1. And that is because we got more hits on our portal block. So you're going to pay very close attention to the fight. So I have 0 here. He goes in. I get 2, 7, 8. So I got 8 hits. So that bonus I get from Sig ability is basically multiplied by 8. Plus I'm going to get the Fury here. And we're going to see that every single hit on my level 1 now deals 6,300 burst. Might not seem a lot, but keep in mind that this is a 4-star rank 3 without class advantage or anything. And it does trigger 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 times. I think it's 6. Quite sure it's 6. 1 second. Let us check it again. Yeah, so I started with 8 combo. Yeah, level 1 has 6 hits, so we trigger that 6k boost 6 times, and that Quicksilver is dead. So that can be the power of Spot in this multi-hit, because you can do the same thing against stuff like, Punisher 2099 special attacks and so on and so forth. But now we're going to use my 4-star rank 3 Spot against 6-star rank 4 champions, and I'm going to show some of the best matchups for Spot, basically. And keep in mind that the block damage in these fights is exaggerated. This would be like fighting opponents in Battlegrounds who have not 100% attack increase, but like 300% attack increase. In realistic situations, you will not take as much block damage, like in Battlegrounds or even in Act 8 and so on and so forth. This block damage is disproportionately large, and on Spot you will see it quite a few times. But here we go, I just basically built up to my level 2 here against Absorbing Man, make sure he is not in his phase. And the level 2, again, is an overkill against this Absorbing Man. You can see that this is approximately kind of like power disparity that we have in Battlegrounds, except that opponents have way more attack, but 46 seconds, here we go. Now, moving on to the next fight. Well, basically what is to be said, Spot destroys almost all of the top Mystics. And here we're going to have a relatively unlucky Sasquatch fight. And again, keep in mind the block damage is definitely exaggerated in this fight, and my damage will also unfortunately not align up perfectly the initial round, because this Sasquatch will just refuse to enter Wrath. But here we can see that I'm being like super aggressive. I'm collecting my raptures. In total, I have inflicted already 20 raptures, so we're gonna have a decent burst for sure. I'm just getting also my portal blocked hits here. Sweet. And here, unfortunately, I didn't do the greatest job getting the extra burst damage from my Sig, but I still get the Fury, so that's something. However, with him reducing all damage output by 45%, we did not even close to finish nuking this guy. Now, on the upside, me consistently spamming debuffs on this guy also stops his healing. So, again, this is, as I mentioned, very good synergy together with the Despair Mastery. And now, we're just gonna get that portal block set up, and a level 2 will be enough to destroy Sasquatch. Not the most exciting fight, but still just, and as an example of a fight that Spot can do. And again, I said I am not like the greatest Spot player, and I'm sure that there are more skilled Spot users out there. I'm not super confident yet in using Spot. But if I recall correctly, this fight is going to go almost perfect. So here we go. I get my final spots. So now I'm just going to try and get to my level 2. It's kind of like my main goal strategy. We have Rintra throwing his level 1 kind of annoyingly, but I use a chance to drop him down with a heavy attack to get rid of all of his charges. Now I just need to build back up to 5 spots, and I will be perfectly set up for anything he can throw at me. I should have let him heavy there. Again, that's just out of experience, but I did get 4 hits in my portal block before I dropped my special attack, so you can see that there is a massive amount of burst damage, and that Rintra effectively got nuked there like nobody's business in 49 seconds, considering that was, again, rank 4 6-star Rintra against my rank 3 tiny Spot. Now, just to show that he is usable and good against non-mystic characters, here we're going to be going up against Nova. This isn't going to be the prettiest fight. I will make a mistake, and there will be kind of like eccentric block damage due to me not setting myself up properly, and I think I'm going to eat like a level 1 as well. But the point will still stand. The fight, again, remains virtually the same. Just be aggressive, build up to your level 2, then re-enter your portal block. Again, was kind of unfortunate here in the first place. And I think here he catches me with the level 1. So my apologies for the scruffy gameplay here. But the point will stand that here we're just going to go for double medium, level 2. And that level 2 does more than enough damage to completely nuke down that Nova, for example. But yeah, in most cases, you will want to. Well, Spot is going to be best against Mystic champions typically. There are other champions. For instance, Thing. You do need to be careful against Thing not to get cornered, because the heavy attack is kind of hard to evade fully against the wall. And obviously, you still need to watch out for the rock stacks. But given the fact that Spot delivers all of his damage via level 2 red numbers, that means you do not really trigger the protection from the Thing. So again, now I'm at nearly at 2 bars of power. Only thing that I really had to do here would be not get clapped, which I think will at some point, because I'm going to be too slow here. Again, one of the most important skills with Spot is knowing when to dash back and get out of the way from a heavy attack. But here we can absolutely see a heavy attack ripping into Thing, and if I had played a bit more carefully, that could have potentially been enough to finish off this fight. Now I am in a bit of a sticky situation, but there is a relatively easy way out of it, because you can play Spot a bit riskier and crazier, because if opponent's unstoppable or he evades you, it doesn't really matter as long as you're evading them too. And as we can see here, I just laid into that unstoppable knowing I can't get hit. So there are more uses to his untouchable than just being like mega aggro. You can use that untouchable to, fully phase a tricky special attack, or you can use that untouchable again, kind of ignore opponents' unstoppables or evades if need be. But here we're going to go against Bishop, and we're going to see a relatively straightforward play here. I did mess up. I ate the first hit of a heavy attack, but it's all good. What is important to know, you can also hold your block whilst you're untouchable to bait out opponents' heavy attacks to push them to special attacks that you want them to use. Now here again, the block damage is kind of huge because I did block that level 2 in order to gain my spots quicker. You would not normally take as much block damage in matchups. Keep that in mind. But here we're going to go and just completely nuke that bishop down straight down as well. Exceedingly fast. And this entire fight lasted how long? 47 seconds. And again, keep in mind that yes, you can hold block while you are untouchable to force out opponents' heavy attacks and then still, push them to special attacks that you wish. Now, this is one of the coolest fights because Spot is a great counter to Mystic Spidey because only thing you have to do is just take a bunch of hits on the block and then spam your light hits until you get to level 2. And if he throws a special attack, that's perfectly fine because you just do the same thing again. But here we can see that Spot nuked down that Mystic Spidey like nobody's business in 24 seconds. Right. Few points using Spot against Mystic Spidey. Mystic Spidey only triggers his invisibility on medium hits. So you can do heavy attacks, special attacks, and light attacks, and he will not trigger his invisibility against you. Additionally, if you do have a fight where, there are trickier nodes, you can use your level 1 to gain buff immunity, in which case Mystic Spidey can't ever trigger his invisibility either. Or if you have had some buffs and you want to get rid of them, you can just use it level 1 to get rid of those buffs. So, found it to be worthwhile to point out. And here another kind of like a classic Spot matchup, which is going to be Mojo. As this matchup is happening in the background, I'm going to be briefly discussing how best to counter Spot. And in short, it typically is ability accuracy reduction. Obviously, Spot is a champion that you do not want to hit in block, like virtually ever. So that's rule number 1, don't hit his block typically. Rule number 2 is ability accuracy reduction champions will work the best. Disorient in particular can prevent Spot from gaining more power, and it is also quite important against Spot to learn how his special attack animations function, because every time you punish his special attack, you take a Spot away from him, and then you can kind of tackle Spot with more different champions that don't have as great of an ability accuracy reduction. And there are few more elegant and intricate tricks at triggering untouchables in the right moments, for instance, but I'm not like super confident in dealing with it. However, in general, on defense, if you happen to see Spot, champions that will do best, I would say would be champs like Nick Fury, champs like Archangel. Falcon is a great counter to Spot. Kingpin as well with his level 1 ability accuracy reduction and ability to purify of debuffs. Or champions that can prevent miss. And the only reason that is quite helpful is that that initial contact hit will still hit the Spot even though he does trigger his untouchable. And then you can just kind of wait it out. Also, I believe Spot enters untouchable whenever he activates special attack with 10 spots as well. So there is a forceful way to safely make sure he triggers untouchable, and that is if he gets to 5 spots, then hit his block until he gets to 10. Because at that point, when he uses special attack, he will trigger his untouchable automatically, and you do not have to do it manually. Other than that, it's one of those things where I probably need to make a separate video going in more detail. Whoops. Other than that, it's one of those videos that I need to make a separate video for it, going into more detail. But I hope you guys enjoyed this one, and if you did, hit that like button, hit that sub button, and I'm going to catch you guys soon. See ya. Hello there guys, and welcome back to the channel. So we have all the information about